There's a pain 49ers fans can recognize before the stats even show up. When the offense loses speed, the field shrinks, the defense breathes easier, and every play call feels like it's fighting a wall. That's how 2025 hurts Santa Clara. Now there's a fast hope already sitting inside the building, while a possible pass rush swing, the pressure on Renardo Green, and George Kittle's frustration put real weight on this season. Hit that like button, subscribe to 49ers Express, and ride with me. And that's where Jacob Cowing becomes more than some name buried near the bottom of the roster. He becomes an uncomfortable reminder for everyone in Santa Clara. Sometimes the piece that changes the shape of the offense is already in the building. The body just didn't let the story move last year. The 49ers offense in 2025 had a problem fans could feel without opening a spreadsheet. There was nobody to threaten deep, nobody to run horizontally and force linebackers, safeties, and nickel corners to respect every inch of the field. When nobody stretches the defense, everything gets tight. Brock Purdy's window gets smaller. Kyle Shanahan's offense loses its bite. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, the inside receivers, everybody starts working with too many defenders around them. Mike Evans is a monster, a future Hall of Famer, a presence that changes how defenses treat you just off reputation. Christian Kirk can help with intelligence, routes, and feel. Dejon Stribling brings youth and juice as a second-round pick. But pure speed, that spark that makes the stadium hold its breath before the ball even leaves the quarterback's hand, that conversation puts Cowing right in the middle. He ran a 4.38 at the combine. That is not some cute little detail. And the bigger thing is that his game does not look like just straight-line speed. Cowing has short area burst, change of direction, that ability to turn a simple route into a problem because the defender has to decide too fast. For an offense that got squeezed, that is gold. Of course, there's the hard part. He basically lost 2025 to injuries, so the physical concern does not disappear because of a good-looking OTA clip. And his size may cap the volume. Nobody needs to sell Cowing as the full savior of the offense, but as a rotational piece, a motion weapon, a slot threat, a quick game player, and maybe a punt returner? That's where the conversation changes. There's another layer too. Rookies in San Francisco do not always fly right into Shanahan's system. This offense demands precision, blocking, reads, details. Stribling can grow, but Cowing is already one step deeper into the process. If he is healthy, more mature, and confident, he could be the player who does not show up first on the poster, but shows up on Sunday when the defense finally has to back up. For me, the emotional question is simple. How many times has the faithful seen this offense look talented on paper, but trapped inside the actual space of the field? Cowing does not need to carry the franchise, he needs to bring fear back. And fear in this offense changes everything. When you talk about bringing fear back, you cannot stay only on offense. The 49ers also need to recover that old feeling, that nasty feeling for opponents, where they look across at San Francisco's defensive front and know it's going to be a long afternoon. That's why the name Josh Sweat hits differently. This rumor around the Cardinals' edge rusher cannot be treated like random off-season noise. The point is not pretending Arizona would make life easy for a division rival. That would be complicated, maybe even unlikely depending on the price and where the Cardinals think they are headed. The point is this. If there really is trade chatter around a productive pass rusher, John Lynch has to at least pick up the phone and feel it out. Because the 49ers defense cannot live off nostalgia. Nick Bosa is still the engine, the face, the main nightmare. But a championship defense cannot ask one man to solve every third down by himself. Last season left that wound open. When the pass rush does not get home consistently, the rest of the defense starts looking more vulnerable than it really is. Corners have to cover longer. Safeties arrive half a second late. Average quarterbacks start looking surgical because they are way too comfortable. Sweat, with 12 sacks and 4 forced fumbles in the season mentioned, is the kind of veteran who would change the conversation immediately. That is not some raw gamble. That is real production. That is pressure from the other side. That is the kind of compliment that forces an offensive coordinator to choose which problem he wants to deal with. And when you place that inside an NFC West where the Rams and Seahawks are pushing the pace, the question gets heavy. Is San Francisco going to wait around while the division moves, or act like a team that still wants control? The cost would probably hurt. A day 2 pick, maybe a second or third rounder, is not pocket change. And I understand anyone who freezes there, because draft capital matters. But the title window matters too. If the roster is built to compete right now, some opportunities demand calculated courage. This is not spending blindly. It is measuring immediate impact, fit, contract, rivalry, and message. And that message would be huge. Bringing Josh Sweat from inside the division would tell the entire NFC that the 49ers are not accepting a defense that is only respectable. They want a defense that is feared again. The faithful knows the difference. Respect is nice. Fear wins in January. Then comes the part that demands more honesty from the fan base. Renardo Green. Because it is way too easy to turn an uneven season into a final verdict. It is also way too easy to grab two good numbers and pretend there were no problems at all. With him, the answer lives in that uncomfortable middle ground fans hate, but championships are decided there. Green was not simply the disaster a lot of people felt while watching week to week. In 2025, he was targeted 71 times and allowed 37 completions, 52.1%. The year before, on 70 targets, he allowed 44 catches, 62.9%. The yardage dropped too. 493 yards in 2024, 445 in 2025. Yards after the catch? From 164 down to 109. Touchdowns allowed? From 3 to 2. Even the passer rating when quarterbacks targeted him fell from 92.1 to 81. So yes, there is a real growth read hidden inside the noise. And for a fan base that saw rookie Green create hope, that matters. He also improved as a tackler. He cut his missed tackles from 8 to 4, raised his total tackles, and lifted his tackling grade from 59.7 to 75.8. That does not happen by accident. That speaks to physicality, focus, and a willingness to fix part of his game. But then comes the side that keeps anyone from celebrating too comfortably. Details. Kyle Shanahan does not get on a player for no reason. The lapses, the focus issues, those moments when a coverage looks half a step late, or the technique loses its cleanliness. That carries a lot of weight for a defense trying to become elite again. And 6 penalties are too many. For a cornerback, especially in a system that should ask for more man coverage with Raheem Morris, discipline is not a luxury, it is survival. I like the fit with Morris because he has a reputation for getting a lot out of his secondary. If the pass rush improves, Green will not have to cover forever. If Bosa gets real help, if the front creates pressure, life changes for every corner. Football is connected. One more edge rusher can turn a 3-second coverage rep into a winning play. So this third year feels like a divider. Green does not need to become a superstar overnight, but he has to become reliable. He has to cut the flags, hold his technique, and prove the unstable version of 2025 was part of the growth, not the beginning of a ceiling. Because Lenoir and Green can still be a strong duo for the future. But in San Francisco, the future cannot stay promised forever. It has to show up on the field. Then George Kittle speaks, and the story stops being only tactics, only roster, only projection. It becomes body. It becomes wear and tear. It becomes a veteran looking at a 15-hour flight, a different time zone, a season opener against the Rams in Australia, and saying what a lot of people inside the NFL might think, but do not always say this clearly. It does not make sense for player health. And I'll say it straight as a 49ers fan. Kittle has every right to be bothered. The league can sell the global show. It can talk about international growth. It can turn every continent into a showcase. But the player is not a marketing prop. The player is the one taking contact, walking back to the hotel sore, trying to sleep with a beat-up body, and needing to be ready the next week like nothing happened. For San Francisco, it hits even harder. This team knows injuries way too well. The faithful has already seen seasons change because bodies could not survive the hits, the buildup, the bad luck, the schedule. And when you talk about Kittle, the feeling gets tighter, because he is not just a popular tight end. He is identity, he is energy, he is blocking, receiving, leadership, smile, competitive anger, all of it together. If he is coming back from a torn Achilles and already has to open the season on the other side of the world, how is the fan base not supposed to feel uneasy? The problem is not Australia. The problem is the logic. Rams versus 49ers is not a light game, not a summer friendly, not a promotional event with no consequences. It is a division rivalry. It is the start of the campaign. It is physical, mental, emotional adjustment. And putting that inside a brutal trip, with time zone disruption, broken routine, and concerns over surfaces or setup, feels like entertainment beating common sense. I want to feel the community on this one. Do you think the NFL is pushing these international games too far? Or do you believe the global growth is worth this kind of sacrifice? Because to me, when a leader like Kittle talks like this, it is not empty complaining. It is a warning. The league loves selling expansion. The 49ers have to sell resilience. And if Santa Clara wants to start strong, they have to beat not only the Rams, but the schedule too. In the end, it all connects. Cowing represents breathing room for an offense that got squeezed. Josh Sweat represents aggression for a defense that needs to scare people again. Renardo Green represents the difference between promise and trust. And Kittle represents something bigger, the line between spectacle and taking care of the people carrying this team with their bodies. This season is not asking for passivity, it is asking for decisions, health, speed, pressure, and maturity. So drop a comment and tell me which of these 4 stories hits you the hardest today. Hit that like button, subscribe to 49ers Express, and stay close, because the Niners road is just getting started.